Happy Sunday, everyone. Today we are diving in to my own journey and the money mindset shift that really changed my life. It took me from a very impoverished background to now having made multi millions and just getting started. So, if you're new here, I'm Makosi, also known as the Royal Shaman. I support incredible conscious change makers in really stepping into their calling and creating amazing empires that support them in fulfilling that work in this world. So I do that by talking about personal development, spirituality, and entrepreneurship. However, today we're going to talk specifically about money and my own journey. I'm not an overnight success by any stretch of the means. And I think that there's going to be some things that you can take away from my story. You will also notice that I am wearing my fabulous Versace jacket and remind me, remind me, and I will tell you all about a really incredible story about this jacket and how it's really an embodiment of some of the things I'll be sharing here with you today. So, I topic because people have been asking me to share more about my own story, my own journey because of course, if you are following me now, you haven't seen all of the trials and tribulations, all of the failures that I've experienced as well as what it really took mentally, as well as um, from a level of embodiment, what it's really taken for me to be able to create a life that is absolutely beyond my wildest dreams. To give you some context, I'm married. I'm a mother. My son is 10 years old. And I've been with my husband a long time, actually. This year, actually, next month, we'll make 11 years married, 14 years. We've been together 14 years total. So we've been together on this journey. And mind you, he also does not come from wealth. So I think it's important sometimes to talk about the partner and like what role that played if you had one, because sometimes as women, everyone thinks like, oh, it must be your sugar daddy. And there's been moments in my life because people misunderstood who I am, what I'm doing. And again, this is actually not even any shade on women who that's that's how they roll, and that's actually mm, that's for some feminine beings, and the men do benefit from that in multiple ways, not just you know, you know what I'm saying. Um, However, that hasn't been my path, and also my husband does not come from money. So, just a little context there. My husband was one of 10 children. His mother had him very, very young. They were constantly being evicted and having to move all of the time. And then he lost his mother at age 13 due to breast cancer. So, he had a very difficult upbringing. I also had a difficult upbringing, and the two of us have definitely um, evolved in so many ways. So, just to give you a little bit of insight, I literally just got back yesterday from Phoenix, Arizona. I stayed in a beautiful resort, and I was there for a mastermind with other women. You have to be, in order to be in this mastermind, you need to be at least making seven figures. And there are some who are doing eight figures and beyond in this mastermind. And the idea that I would be traveling the way that I do, staying in the kinds of places that I do, not having to be constantly stressed about the finances of traveling is just not something I would have thought of when I started on this journey. So back to my childhood. So my childhood, I grew up in small town, West Virginia. My mom, so she had both of us, my brother and I, before she was 18 years old. So she had me at 16, had him at 17. And my father also had other children after the two of us, but they were never really together. So my mother was a single teen mom, and life for us was very hard. There were periods of living in a trailer park. I do remember specifically that things did seem to get better when we were living also with my grandmother, but there were times that even the idea of like, are what are we going to eat tonight was like, that's what we were in survival mode. um, there were periods of time where we wouldn't have heat to heat our homes, and life was a constant, paycheck by paycheck. My mother working multiple jobs, so she wasn't able to really be very present with us. And it was the struggle life in so many ways. Now, as a child, as you can imagine, having that experience, I always had um, dreams of having a different life. And I thought the way that you do that is you go to college, you get a degree, you get a 9 to 5, and that's how you that's how you get out of that situation. And for me, I grew up in an area that is one of the most impoverished states in the United States. So it wasn't like I had a lot of role models. I don't remember having any role models really that were um, engaged in my life as a child. Pretty much everyone that we were surrounded was struggling financially. So I didn't have these experiences where, oh my gosh, I'm being mentored by someone who is taking me to, I don't know, travel. I didn't even get on a plane until my 20s, until like my mid 20s to be specific. So it wasn't even an idea for me that I could get to the level that I operate in now. But I am a little rebellious, and I was determined to beat the statistics. Now, as a kid, having the experiences that I had gave me doors. Well, I will say they were opportunities where there weren't actually any doors there. I just created the doors. And that has served me well. So, number one takeaway that you can take from this is find ways to take your obstacles and then make them opportunities. There were multiple times in my childhood, because we could not afford things, that I had to make a way. I mean, I guess I didn't have to. I just chose to make a way where there was no way. And I am very good at that now. So, when I was my first experience in entrepreneurship specifically, I was 9 years old. I have Amish Mennonite family, and we actually went and lived with them for a few years. But at 9, we had gone back and visited for a summer. My aunt was like, "All right, we are going to go to the Amish market, and we're going to sell rhubarb pies." Specifically, they were rhubarb. And that was my first time selling, and I was really good out there, like hustling pies. You could just imagine me as a 9-year-old. I was very charismatic, and I was out there selling pies. So that was my first experience with like, wait a minute, I can offer something to people, and then they can give us money in exchange. So a couple years later, this is when cell phones start coming out. And there were some people at my middle school that had cell phones. There were a couple kids who had cell phones. And I told my mom, I want a cell phone. And of course, she was like, there's no way you're getting a cell phone. We cannot afford for you to have a cell phone. So if you want a cell phone, you're going to have to figure out a way to pay for it. So after she kind of broke it down to me what that would cost and what that would look like, I was like, all right, I'm going to get the money to pay for a cell phone. So I launched mini tutoring business. I went out and I found some clients. I started tutoring kids that were younger than me. At this time, I was in seventh grade. They were in like fifth and fourth grade. And so I started tutoring them in English and math. And that was like a consistent, I would make like $20, $30, $40, $50 every week. And then I was able to pay for my phone every single month. And that was like the start. So I've been in a variety of business opportunities since that age. Also around that age, I had a friend, maybe I was 13. I had a friend who gifted me a tarot deck. And I was a very good intuitive reader right off the bat. So I took my tarot deck and I started doing tarot readings for kids at school, and they would pay me for tarot insights. I also got into pageants and started to I had to raise money because if you've ever been in pageants, they're very expensive, and my mom could not afford for me to be in pageants, but I was like, I'm going to do this. And so I would find ways to make money. So that should give you a little bit of context to the kind of preteen and then teenager I turned into. Um, I eventually, around 14, 15, became a professional entertainer. So I started traveling with a DJ company. And so every weekend I was out dancing, singing, um, doing bar and bat mitzvahs, wedding receptions, um, all kinds of just like Halloween parties. I remember I will never forget this. Okay, I actually did not even remember this until this moment. This was probably a really big moment for me. At 15, we did, I think it was a Halloween party. It had to be a Halloween party because I remember specifically I met the um, the owner of Sheets. So if you're not in the US or you're not in an area where there are Sheets, Sheets are a gas station. And at the time, they were all over the place. They still are all over the place. And the owner of that company was there. And so this is like a multimillionaire, if not a billionaire at that point, probably was a billionaire by then. And he was wearing a SpongeBob, a SpongeBob SquarePants costume. And I'll never forget that because I danced with him. We talked, we laughed, we goofed. He was, an older man, and he was just so lighthearted. So this was like my first experience with meeting someone who had like real money. They were not at all what the typical, like, oh, this is how people with money act, and this is how you've got to look. Number one, you would never know how much money he had by looking at him. He was very uh, relatable, and you could just talk with him. And I don't know, I'm sure that had some effect on me and shifted my perspective about what people with money were like, right? So fast forward a few more years, and I'm in college. In college, again, going back to my early childhood, I had it in my mind, you go to college and that's where your success is made. So I changed my major a few times because I really love to learn. However, I would get bored really, really easily. And also at this time, I had a gazillion jobs. Let me tell you, I'm a horrible employee. Um, yeah, because I'm not great at doing the same thing every single day and kind of like robotic stuff. Not great. But I was in sales and in management, like in retail management, um, all sorts of stuff. So I decide, well, I'm in college. I want to make the like what's the hardest thing that you could do or what's going to get you like the most clout, the most respect. Um there's only a few things, right? There's you can become a lawyer, you could become an engineer, or you could become a doctor. I am very good at science and also pretty good at math. So I was like, all right, ding, 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 I'm going to become a doctor. I'm going to become a doctor. Literally, I just fantasized about having the word doctor in front of my name, which sounds really, really immature, really, really petty. But it's the truth. Like, I wanted to become a doctor, not because I genuinely wanted to become a doctor, but because I thought that it would, you know, my mom would be proud of me, that people would stop underestimating me, that they would respect me, and also that I would have enough money to be able to take care of myself, my family, and my kids would never have the childhood that I grew up in. So while I'm this should tell you how ridiculous this was. While I'm in college studying to become a doctor, okay, I'm literally taking my medical school prereq classes. At the same time, I'm working full time in a variety of different roles over my college career. So I was in sales selling jewelry and mattresses at one point, like high end Tempur-Pedic, Stearns and Foster's mattresses. I was in retail management at some point. And because of that, I'm like, oh, well, sales, business, management has always been easy to me. Oh, I had also created marketing opportunities for myself because I couldn't get an internship. So I was like, I'm gonna get a degree in business just in case this whole med school thing doesn't work out. I'm gonna fall back on business because like this is easy. I can do this all day. Which should have been my sign that hey, if it's easy, maybe you naturally have a gift here. Maybe you should do this. So anyway, in order to get that, um, in order to get that degree, of course, I also needed an internship. There was no internships where I was really. There was like maybe a handful. They certainly weren't paid. And I literally was like, okay, well, but I need one. So I went to small businesses that were in my local area, and I was like, hey, you don't have a social media presence. This was like 2011, 2010. You're not on social media. How about you let me create a social media presence for you and do your marketing? In exchange, you will let me do a case study of you and you'll write you'll write a testimonial of what your experience was, whether it's good or bad, that I can put in my portfolio. I still have that portfolio, by the way. I kept I kept track of like my commission, my commission, not commission, my conversions when I was in sales, my anything anyone gave me that was like some piece of social proof I put in that portfolio. So anyway, I'm doing my prereqs for med school. I am also studying to get my degree in marketing management and come to this place my senior year. I was a super senior because I was working my entire time. So It took me 6 years to graduate from college. Literally 6 years. But my final year, I had some health complications that had come up. Actually, my first senior year, health complications came up. The doctor told me and my then fiance if we wanted to have children, we were probably going to need to start trying because I was going to have a very limited window of fertility. And he was right in that it took over a year of different treatments and a lot of struggle to get pregnant. I then struggled to stay pregnant, which resulted in me my last year. I decided not to drop out, but I was taking chemistry and physics and biology in that last year, and I couldn't physically go to school, and they didn't have online options. Online education was not as big back then as it is now. So I refused to drop out in my last year. I was like, no, I'm going to teach myself. I'm going to teach myself. So I taught myself physics and biology and chemistry, which was a doozy because chemistry I did not take to it very easily at all. Anyway, I'm completing my education. I'm getting my degree, and I had one semester left after my son was born. Now, mind you, I was so singularly focused on I'm going to become a doctor. I'm going to make great life for myself and my kid and my husband. Like, this is going to be great. And then when he came after so many struggles to get pregnant, the struggle to stay pregnant, and then I had an experience right after he was born where I developed postpartum preeclampsia and ended up in the hospital. It was I came very close to death at that moment. I did all of that, and here I was facing med school, and I just could not picture myself leaving to go study all the time, to go into like it just I couldn't imagine. I was like, he's going to be like 10 years old before I have any real time with him. And yeah, I couldn't do it. So I decided to finish my classes. I was like, if I ever need to go to med school, if I ever want to go back, I will have my prereqs. So that's cool. And I got a job at Red Lobster. got a job at Red Lobster in my last semester because we needed the money. And ultimately I ended up with 2 degrees because I was able to use some of my credits from the other school that I was in. I got basically 2 degrees, one in business and one in marketing management at the same time. So 2 bachelor's degrees in business and marketing and management. And then also I had taken all of my prereqs for med school. So that's just a little bit of context to what was really possible. Because here I come, I'm out of school. I had worked my entire college career. And mind you, not just my whole college career, I had been working in some capacity since I was like 12. And now I'm like 23, 24. So I come out of college and have 2 degrees. And they are like, I'm applying to all sorts of jobs, but there's no opportunities really. This is like off the back of the 2008 recession. I live in West Virginia. There's no opportunities really there. So everyone was telling me like, hey, you're overqualified for a lot of these jobs, or underqualified for the jobs that I was applying for that were like out of state. So I ended up working at Target. I go from Red Lobster, have my degrees, go work at Target as a manager. And I thought that that was going to be okay because I had a decent schedule for a mom, but the daily having to drop him off at daycare and then pick him up and then, after all the traffic and making dinner, it was like I was only getting to spend an hour a day with him, which again was just not at all what I wanted. So, the second key point here that I think you can take away from this story that I'm sharing from my own life was that it's really important to be honest with yourself about what matters. What actually matters to you? Because when I was in college before my son was born, the truth was that I was seeking external validation. I was trying to look good to a bunch of people who didn't even, not to say that people like my mom matters, but honestly, like my mom would be proud of me for pretty much anything. Um Even if she wouldn't have been proud of me for almost anything, um she is not going to live my life with me, right? Even my significant other doesn't live my life, right? So I had to be really honest about what mattered to me, what I valued, even though people didn't get it. There were a lot of people, especially women, which was weird to me. There were so many women who looked down on me and judged me and had weird things to say about me wanting to be a stay-at-home mom. And that was difficult, but because I was clear about what actually mattered, I had like an anchor to pull me back into like what mattered to me. So anyway, I'm working at Target and dropping him off at daycare, and that was when I was I was invited to a pure romance party, to be specific. That was on a Friday. I was like, oh crap, I could totally do this. I have been very much into women's sexuality and sexual health and all of that for a long time. And I've also been in sales. So that was on Friday. Came home. I told my husband, I was like, I think I want to do this. I want to be home. And so I put in my 2 weeks notice and I was like, I'm going to go all in on this. Number three takeaway that you can also borrow from my story was that I knew my numbers. Know your numbers, okay? Know your numbers. I do not advise that people do things the way that I did it because it was very, very scary, not good for your for your nervous system at all. I did not have savings set aside. I didn't have the kind of plan that I would guide people through now, but I knew my numbers. And after sitting and calculating what I needed to make, I knew in order to make up the difference, I only needed to make about $500 a month, which was like a slap in the face because I was like, wait, is me working 40 hours a week, 4 weeks a month? Is that worth $500? Like, I was just mind blown that after all was said and done, I was doing all of that work to basically make $500 a month. It was insane. So anyway, I knew my numbers, and so I I will say I come across people so often, especially female entrepreneurs who have in their head of like, oh, I have to hit this, I have to have $1 million business. I have to have, I got to hit 8 figures. And when you ask, like, why do you need to hit that? They're like, oh, because the lifestyle that I want requires me to have have this huge business. And this is not to say don't shoot for $1 million or don't shoot for an 8-figure business. However, that could take some time. Like that can take quite a bit of time. I'm telling you my journey. This has been a lifetime coming, honestly. Um, but knowing your numbers for your next step, knowing your numbers that reflects the life that you want to live in your next iteration. Like specifically, what is the rent or the mortgage of the place that you want to live in next? What is what would your car payment be for the vehicle that is actually feels good for you to drive? What what is the kind of support that you would like to have? Like I have someone who does my laundry and cleans our house, and I've hired organizers. Like what do those things actually cost? And you might be surprised at how accessible certain things are. Like most people, it sounds absolutely so beyond that I would have someone who does our laundry. However, it costs like $100 to $150 for her to come and pick up the laundry, do all of our laundry, fold it every week, and then drop it off. Are you kidding me? For like $150? At this point, I can make $150 in a fraction of the time that she's saving me on all of that laundry, right? So, really know your numbers that reflect what the life is that you want. I will never forget, I had a client who had a multi-million-dollar business who was like, oh, I need to 10x. I was like, damn, like like there must really be a massive lifestyle shift that you want to make if you already have a multi-million-dollar business and you feel that you have to quantum leap now. When we sat and did the numbers, I was like, no, you only really need to make like another $2 million, really, a year for the team to grow the way that that you want it, for the lifestyle that you want, the kind of travel that you want, etc. So please take the time to actually like research what does the vision of your life actually cost or would actually look like. Anyway, so back to my story. I quit Target, I get into direct sales, and at first I'm doing all right in that I got parties on the books, not a ton, mind you, but 90 days in, I had run through my friends list because I didn't have that many friends at the time. And I'm staring at a blank calendar. Now, I had had a conversation with my husband about what plan B was. Plan B was I'm not going to go back into retail. I'll go back to working at Red Lobster because I could work 4 or 5 hour shifts, make a decent amount of money, and our son would not need to be in daycare. But even though I had said that to him, that was not a real plan B for me. I was like, I'm not going back to Red Lobster. So I sought out a mentor. I sought out a mentor. So this is also another piece that you can take away, another shift. Seek mentorship, seek environment, right? Seek someone who has either already been there or at least knows how to get you there. So I told her, I said, listen, I have no parties on the books. This is like a do or die moment for me. So I don't want to go back to working at Red Lobster. Whatever you tell me to do, I will do it. I don't care how uncomfortable it is. I don't care how hard it is. I really didn't care. And she was like, all right, this is what you need to do. So she gave me a challenge to get 100 no's, 100 no's, which was so terrifying to me, right? Because we try to seek out people to say yes, and rejection can hurt. We can take This time I was trying to get no's. And what's beautiful about the assignment that she gave me was that I was building up my resiliency to the word no, but also along the way of getting 100 no's, somebody's going to say yes. Somebody is going to say yes. So you can ask yourself right now, when was the last time you sought out no? When was the last time you stretched outside your own comfort zone to get no's? Well, remember exactly how many people said yes, but I will tell you that after getting 100 no's, I was booked, honey. I was booked. So she gave me that challenge, and then she also said and showed me how I should set a goal to book 3 parties from every one of the parties that I did. So that was always my goal when I went to a party, even if I didn't make any money, because mind you, I did not make money at every single party. But my goal was always to get 3. The reason for that was that one of them was always probably going to fall off. One of them would probably make money and the other one might not, right? So I was always setting myself up for success if I was shooting for 3 parties. So it didn't take me very long. From that initial 90 days, I had this pivotal moment happen, and then I'm booked out. So 6 months later from that initial failure moment, I had made it into the top 2% of that company. Less than 2%, actually. I think it was like 1.1%. I was in the top of the company in 9 months of starting after almost completely failing. Okay. So here I am now, a very different reality, 9 months after I left Target. So this was probably the year 2014, maybe. I think maybe 2014. It's 2014. Here I am, married. I have a toddler, so he was a little over 1 years old, 1 year old, not years. And life looks very different from me working day to day at Target. Now, because I'm in the top of the company, I'm winning cash checks, like more money than I have had ever seen. I still have a picture of, I think that they sent me, was it $1,000 cash bonus? It was like I had never seen $1,000 in one time in cash, right? I had always, in order to pay rent, had to like save up money over multiple weeks in order to be able to pay it. And here I was with this $1,000. Maybe it was 1,500. Anyway, it was a huge check that I got right around Christmas, right? From my perspective, it was huge. So I'm getting cash bonuses. I, was able to buy like my first, from my perspective, high-end handbag. It was a Kate Spade handbag, which is not technically luxury. It's technically a contemporary brand. But at the time, it was like so insane to me to be able to spend that much money. It was like a $300 handbag. I had won trips. So I took my husband, got on my very first flight then. They flew me out to Las Vegas. It was 5 days, all expenses paid at Planet Hollywood in Vegas. And mansion parties with the CEO and founder of the company. Like, it was the storybook of what I thought success meant. But when I got there, even though I actually liked what I did, I Felt like I was having an impact. I enjoyed the women that I was working with. I had the lifestyle for the most part that I wanted. I was with my son all day long, and then a few nights a week, I would go to parties. It was not at all what I thought it was going to be. I was not all of a sudden happy and fulfilled and all of the things. So, because of that, I started asking the universe different questions. I started asking questions like, who am I? Who am I here to be? What is my calling? Like, is this all there is to life, or is there more? And ultimately, that is what guided and propelled me onto my spiritual journey. Now, on my spiritual journey, I'm not going to dive into all the ins and outs. Maybe we'll do a separate episode on my spiritual journey if you would like that specific aspect, because that was 5 years, a 5 year journey, 5 year plus journey. But during that period of time, I was in business in some way, shape, or form, right? However, my focus was on alignment. Who am I? What am I here to do? Who am I here to be? All of that. And I'm going to fast forward a little bit. I'm going to fast forward to I kind of complete my spiritual journey, at least not complete it because you're always on a spiritual journey, but I had traveled to South Africa. Over my spiritual journey, I had been traveling back and forth to Africa, initiating. 2018, I was doing marketing behind the scenes for some small businesses and also completing my ceremonies, traveled to South Africa, and that's when I officially became a shaman, a Sangoma specifically, which now I know is actually I'm not only a Sangoma, but a Sanusi. More details on that at another time. So I started also doing spiritual work with people at that time. So 2018, I had returned from South Africa. I had been working with people spiritually for some time. Remember, I started the story about how I was reading tarot at 12. And so I have been working with people in a variety of ways for a long time. End of 2018, I launched my very first group coaching program, and I launched it. It was $97. Oh my gosh, it's wild to say. So I used to do sessions. They were $200. It was $197 to work with me, a private session. $197. It's so wild to think about that now. $197 for a private session. I launched this group program. It was $97 a month. And I think I enrolled 20 people. And immediately 5 of them fell off. They didn't hang around. But another important moment happened. My husband and I he's an electrician. He was in the union. They had a New Year's Eve party. And we got a hotel because we didn't want to drive, having had a few drinks. And before we went down to the party, we decided we have this tradition of sitting down together and envisioning what our life was going to be like, setting our vision with one another. And 2019, I will never forget. I was like, this is the year. We're going to make $100,000. We're going to make $100,000. That's our goal. We had some other things on there, but that was our vision, was to make $100,000 together, mind you. Not I'm going to make $100,000, but together we're going to make $100,000. And 3 months later, with that as like our North Star, an opportunity opened up where work was picking up in um, in Virginia. Tacoza, I haven't seen you forever. Hey, love. Work had picked up, and so we decided to move. We just like got up with literally like 2 weeks, 2 weeks notice. We found renters for our home, and we got up and moved to Virginia. Now, another shift you can take away from this, another mindset piece that was our reason for doing this, was not just the job. We specifically chose to move to this area because, number one, it was in the wealthiest county in the United States. Okay. A lot of people think like, oh, LA's where the money or New York. No, no, no. Northern Virginia, outside of DC, also in Maryland as well, but there's a lot of money, old money in that area. So for us, and what I knew was important, was that we normalize and be in an environment of abundance. So we moved into an apartment from a house. We had a house on 1 acre of land. We downsize to an apartment. Mind you, the apartment was a luxury apartment. It was fabulous. But it was downsizing a lot. But in every day, we'd walk outside. Our neighbors would be parking their Lamborghinis beside us. And there are hotels for dogs and spas at every corner, right? So our purpose for making that move was to immerse ourselves in an environment that made it so obvious that of course you're going to make $100,000. Like, the average household income in that area is over 150,000. So it's like, if you're in this environment, it's really just like a matter of time before you also are elevating and opportunities are opening and so on and so forth. So in that same spirit, I would say that this is the money mindset shift, the money mindset shift that really changed everything for me. Because think about it. In 2019, okay, 1/1/2019, my husband and I set out with the intention to make $100,000 combined. So I had not yet made that. Within a year later, I myself was crossing the $100,000 mark. And then 2 years after that, is it 2 years? Yeah, I crossed the $1 million a year mark, right? So I've had a couple years at the 7-figure a year mark. That is how you quantum leap. And the secret to how I quantum leaped was in environment, was in embodiment. So in addition to making that move to that area, I started spending time and surrounding myself with people who thought differently, who saw opportunities where there were obstacles. I invested in a spa membership. And so I was at the spa regularly, where, there are people going in and out of there who are running Fortune 500 businesses and, professional athletes and so on and so forth. And that was my everyday life, right? So what that did was open up for me what I'm going to underline for you. Money is relative. Money is relative. When I understood that money is relative, it opened up everything for me. Because when I understood that $100,000 in living in West Virginia is very different to $100,000 living in the DC area, for example, which is also very different than, let's say, $100,000 US living in the Philippines, right? That really got me seeing things differently. It was that perspective shift that then allowed me to start really shifting what I was charging, because I was able to look at, okay, based off of how I'm working with clients and the results that they're having, because they were having some really incredible results. And I started putting that in context. I started looking at, okay, what are my gifts naturally? What is the things that I'm just naturally good at, or have mastery in? Who would value those the most? Who would value those traits the most? One of those, for example, quite detached and unbiased. To a lot of spiritual people, it's horrible because people think I don't care. I come off cold sometimes. It's just who I am. But to the right person, they want to be able to have someone who you can give the most, you can share the most stressful, most traumatic, most insane thing. And I'm cool under pressure. It's one of my greatest gifts. It's why when the pandemonium happened, I was able to keep my cool. And that's also when my business blew up, because I was able to maintain my inner peace. But when I started looking at who does this serve the most, who can it have the greatest impact for, and what are the kinds of results that it would create, or that it does create, and where's the evidence for me to see that? That was when it was obvious to me that the highest level of my gifting at the time was to be an executive spiritual advisor. So that was when I went from, okay, $97 a month for my group program. I had inched the pricing up to like $297. After repackaging everything, that was when I shifted to about $50,000 a year per client, from $297 a month for group clients to $50K. And then I was at $100K. And of course now, I mean, it's been a few years at that level. So now I can be paid that in way less time, not even to work with someone for a year. Now someone might pay me 6 figures to work with me for a very short amount of time. Not everyone pays me all of, $100,000 to work with me at that level. I have group offers, but at the one-on-one level, very intimate, very in-depth, holding space for 7, 8-figure plus level entrepreneurs, a brainer, because they know what's on the line, right? So that is how all of that happened. Okay. That is the greatest money mindset shift that allowed me to go from charging $97 a month to $100,000 plus offers and beyond, ultimately creating a 7-figure plus business and supporting so many conscious change makers who have made millions of dollars as a result of our work together. Now, I've been going on for a while. I went really in depth with this. I was like, oh, well, this is only going to take like 15 minutes to tell my story, because I don't talk about my story often. I did not realize it was going to take this long. But I promised at the beginning that I would share about this leather jacket that I'm wearing, this beautiful Versace. Hold on, let me move so that you can see it, because she is fabulous, honey. Do you see her? I get chills still every time I put her on. So I had some clients who, very high level clients who had come to visit me. I was hosting them for an intensive. It was beautiful. Put them up in my favorite spa, and we spent some time masterminding and really working through some of their blocks, and it was magical. But I also took them to a little shopping, a little luxurious shopping. So we are at the luxury mall where you find Chanel, Bottega, uh, Versace, like all of the highest end stores were there. And I don't shop when I'm with clients. I'm hosting them. My focus is on them. But I walked past that window and I saw this baby. I saw her in the window and I could not to at least try it on. Now, mind you, I usually make purchases with a wish list. I put things down because I can get really excited about something, but then after sleeping on it, it's not really my jam. So I tried it on and I put it on. I was like, oh my gosh, do you know how hard it is to find black leather with gold hardware? And it fit perfectly. It was amazing. I was like, all right, I'm going to sleep on it. I go home. I slept on it. And I woke up and I just knew I'm buying that jacket. I'm going in there, I'm buying it, even though I had no intentions of buying this leather jacket. So I contacted my SA, my store associate, and said, "Hey, I'm gonna need that jacket. How much?" I do believe it was $4,500, which I had never in my life spent $4,500 on a jacket. Okay, that I had spent that on handbags, but not on a jacket. I'm like, you know what? I just know we belong together, right? So I went ahead and I was like, go ahead and send me the invoice. I'll take care of it to make sure that no one else bought it, right? I paid the invoice online and I was like, I'll come by tomorrow to pick it up. So I paid it online on the checkout page, get my confirmation number, got my confirmation email. I'm giving you all these specifics for a reason. Got my confirmation email. It's all paid. It's all good. My SA texts, hey, everything went through. Everything's great. I'll see you tomorrow when you pick it up. So I go and I look on my credit card just to see, make sure that it went through. It went through. So I go the next day to pick it up, and my SA's there, got packaged beautifully, of course, ready to go for me. Hands me the receipt. I look at the receipt. The receipt says paid. Because listen, I'm not trying to get caught walking out of this Versace store with this jacket and no proof of purchase, right? So I leave, go home, and I am living and loving this beauty. Okay. So a few days goes by and I go to log on to my credit card account to make a payment because I'm like, oh, there's other, literally I basically maxed out that credit card. I needed some room on it. It needed to breathe. So I log in to pay my credit card payment and there is a zero balance on my credit card. Okay. Zero balance, $0 balance. I did not make any payments. So I go down and I scroll. I start panicking because I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, I have a jacket I didn't pay for. So I started freaking out. I go down and I scroll, and that payment that had gone through had disappeared from my statement. Still freaking out, thinking that I stole a jacket. I contacted the store. I immediately called the store, spoke to a manager. And I was like, hey, I'm just checking to make sure that the payment went through for this jacket. The manager says, yeah, everything looks good on our end. And I'm like, okay, huh, interesting. So I chose to take it as a gift from the universe, from my spirit squad, I was meant to have this bad boy. And well, no one's taken me to prison. And it never showed up. That was also when I really started to understand that money is literally just an energy. Since that moment, and even before then, there's been so many incredible gifts that have come into my life that I didn't do anything for, that I sometimes didn't even pay for, right? But somehow the universe continues to reflect abundance to me in so many ways. I cannot even begin to explain it. So I hope that this has been as incredible for you as it has been for me, giving you a little bit of insight. Now, these days, I have this year invested in an incredible multi-million dollar estate. It's called the Waterfalling Estate in Hawaii. We'll be taking our higher level clients, our Synarchy Royals, to stay at Waterfalling. I also have some other epic power moves in the works that I cannot talk about right now, but the universe has opened up so many doors for me where it's just like, can it be that easy? Can it just be that good? And the answer is that life can be that good. It can be that easy. It can be that sweet and abundant and beautiful, but we have to allow it to be that. Anyways, if you got value from this, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. I will be seeing you next week, and be sure to hit me up in the DMs with any insights or ahas that you had from me sharing my story. I'll see you next week. Bye.